Hello everyone. Welcome to the course of Survey of Major English-Speaking Countries. Today, we are going to learn Chapter 2, The History of Great Britain. This lecture is about Lesson B, The Wars of Roses. The oldest institution of government is the monarchy, which means being ruled by the king. British royal family is one of the most famous royal families, which have the longest history in the world. It has been almost 1,000 years from the King William in 1066, and it has gone through 10 dynasties, 42 kings or queens. Due to the special national conditions and the historical reasons, the royal family survived today. In Britain, the Queen is the head of the state, and she has very little power and plays no active part in politics. Her role is largely ceremonial. At present, the British royal family is the symbol of Britain and its culture. Today, we are going to talk about an important historical event, also a civil war in the royal family in the 14th and 15th century, the Wars of Roses. The Wars of Roses were a series of bloody civil wars for the throne of England between two competing royal families, the House of York and the House of Lancaster, both members of the age-old royal Plantagenet family. From the bloody battles and conflicts between 1455 and 1485, the War of Roses earned its flowery name because the white rose was the badge for the York family, and the red rose was the badge for the Lancastrians. After 30 years of political manipulation, horrific conflicts, and brief periods of peace, the wars ended and a new royal dynasty emerged. At first, let's get to know the developmental process of this war. Henry VI was the last king of England of Lancaster dynasty. His father, Henry V, died when he was just a 9-month baby. Therefore, he inherited the throne and became the King of England while he was not interested in policy. Because of these, he almost lost all policy influence points of England in France, including the points that his father, Henry V, won in the 100 Years' War with France. Consequently, he was taken as an incompetent emperor. Even though he was so lucky to have an awesome wife, Queen Margaret of Anjou, with beauty and wisdom, who did her best to ensure his throne, and became the real leader of the House of Lancaster. Between 1450 and 1460, Richard, 3rd Duke of York, had become the head of a great baronial league, of which the foremost members were his kinsmen. Richard, Yorkish leader, Duke of York, was appointed as protector, attempted to usurp the throne. Queen Margaret of Anjou would not like to have his way, so she fought back. She formed alliance to counter Richard and conspired to reduce his influence with other nobles. Duke of York, was not willing to reconcile his situation. So, he waged war on the house of the Lancaster. The first battle of the wars at St. Albans on May 22nd, 1455, resulted in a Yorkish victory and 4 years of uneasy truce. From then on, the struggle was bitter. Both parties laid aside their reservations and struck down their opponents without mercy. The cold-blooded ferocity that now entered English political life. Because the First War of St. Albans, Duke of York Richard was predominant in military. He argued greatly with the House of Lancaster about whether he or Henry VI's son, Prince Edward, could inherit the throne. Queen Margaret of Anjou wanted to ensure his son's throne, and then she persuaded his husband to terminate Duke of York's position. However, King Henry didn't anticipate that he was captured in 1460. In order to save the king, Queen Margaret launched a battle to kill Duke of York, and then she suspended the head of Duke of York in the gate of York County. But soon, she was defeated by Duke of York's son, Edward IV. With Kingsmaker, first Earl of Warwick, Richard Neville's help, Edward I took the throne and became the first king of York dynasty. In 1470, Earl of Warwick helped Henry VI take back his own throne as a result of conflicting with Edward IV. But in the next year, Edward IV beat Henry VI and killed him. Queen Margaret of Anjou was imprisoned until her father, the French king Louis, ransomed her in 1475. Edward IV was an excellent emperor, and he held the throne until he passed away in 1483. After the Yorkish king Edward IV died, the crown passed to his eldest son, Edward V. Since Edward was only 12 years old, his uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester, was made protector of the realm until he came of age. Edward and his younger brother Richard of Shrewsbury were sent to live in the Tower of London. But they turned from honored guests into prisoners after their uncle and his allies invalidated their deceased father's marriage and declared them illegitimate. The Duke usurped the throne and was crowned King Richard III shortly thereafter. And the two princes in the tower vanished without a trace. The skeletons of a pair of children were later found underneath one of the tower's staircases in 1674, leading many historians to conclude that Richard III has the boys killed. The remains have never been authenticated, however, and the prince's true fate remains a mystery. Yet his younger brother Richard III stole the throne as soon as Edward IV died. Richard III just held the throne for 2 years because he got killed by Henry Tudor in the last war of 1485. Henry Tudor was the final winner in the Wars of the Roses. With the purposes of consolidating power, he married Edward I's daughter, Elizabeth, holding the throne and becoming Henry VII. That meant Wars of Roses was over, and the Tudor dynasty, a new dynasty, was coming. The Wars of the Roses affected England's throne for many years, and thereby changing the outlook of the country. The Wars of the Roses was a civil war between the houses of York and the House of Lancaster. This civil war impacted the whole country of England, from its economy to the rule of that English governance over the country. Because of the length of the war and all the different groups of English nobility being involved in the war, the Wars of the Roses became one of the most devastating wars ever happened in the history of England. From the Wars of the Roses, feudalism received its death blow. The great medieval nobility was much weakened and discredited. Hence, the king's power became supreme. In conclusion, the Wars of the Roses was a war that had a very strong effect on England and its future as a country. The war set the path for the start of the English Reformation, which would change how the world would view England. If it was not for the War of the Roses, the England would still be the same as it was before the war, and all the arts, music, and other things that came out of the English Reformation would never have existed.